For generations, the social contract of dating was built on a simple, unchallenged premise. The man was the pursuer. This role was not merely a preference but an expectation deeply woven into the fabric of masculinity. To see a woman you were interested in, gather your courage and approach her, was a rite of passage. It was a test of character, a demonstration of confidence that was interpreted as strength and leadership. The potential for rejection was an inherent and accepted part of this dance. A no thank you was a minor blow to the ego, a sting that men were conditioned to absorb, learn from, and move on from. The risk was personal, private, and manageable. The modern landscape, however, has radically altered this calculus. The fundamental shift is not that men have become averse to rejection itself, but that the stakes of attempting have been raised to a terrifying and often unsustainable level. The cost of a misstep is no longer a momentary embarrassment, but a potential permanent scar on a man's reputation and livelihood. In today's hyper-connected world, a single approach, if deemed awkward, unwanted, or simply misinterpreted, can be instantly weaponized. A man's words can be recorded out of context. His intentions can be twisted by a narrative he doesn't control, and his image can be broadcast to thousands as an example of creepy or predatory behavior within minutes. This isn't a theoretical fear. It's a reality observed in headlines and social media feeds. Men have watched others face public shamings, lose job opportunities, and have their lives upended not for any act of malice, but for the simple, age-old act of shooting their shot. The risk has been transformed from a personal one into a public and professional one. Consequently, men are forced to perform a complex risk assessment every time they consider approaching a woman. The potential reward, a conversation, a phone number, a date, is now weighed against the potential for social ostracization, it's online humiliation, and career destruction. When the potential downside is catastrophic and the upside is merely a chance, the rational choice for self-preserving men is to abstain. This isn't a failure of nerve. It's an intelligent response to a hostile environment. It is a strategic retreat from a game where the rules have been changed to make the act of playing itself dangerously punitive. The environment where men and women once interacted has been fundamentally reshaped by powerful external forces, creating a bewildering and often contradictory set of rules. The most significant disruptor has been the digital revolution, specifically the rise of social media and dating apps. These platforms have created an artificial economy of attention where supply and demand are severely skewed. An average woman can now receive a volume of validation and pursuit in a single day that an average man might not experience in a year. This constant influx of options, many of them from men perceived as high value due to curated profiles, creates an illusion of infinite choice. It inflates expectations and skews perception of real-world value. When a man approaches in a coffee shop or a bar, he is no longer being judged solely on his own merits. He is subconsciously being measured against a phantom army of hundreds of other suitors in her inbox: the chiseled fitness model, the wealthy entrepreneur, the charming traveler. He is competing with digital fantasies, and most ordinary men logically conclude they cannot win against an illusion. This digital distortion is compounded by a profound shift in the cultural narrative surrounding masculinity and acceptable behavior. Men now find themselves in a paralyzing double bind. On one hand, they are still told by traditional voices to man up, to be confident, assertive leaders, and initiators, the very traits that define a pursuer. On the other hand, the modern social justice lens often reframes that same confidence as entitlement, traditional assertiveness as aggression, and initiation as imposing. The goalposts for what constitutes a good approach are not only constantly moving, but are also completely subjective. What one woman finds charming, another can easily label as creepy. There is no universal rulebook, only the potential to unintentionally cause offense simply by existing in a public space and expressing interest. This creates a state of analysis paralysis, where men overthink every possible variable: word choice, body language, tone, set until the moment passes and the safe choice of inaction prevails. The fear is no longer just about being rejected, but about being wrong, and in today's climate, being wrong can carry a severe penalty. Faced with a game that is not only stacked against them, but also punitive for merely playing. Men are not succumbing to despair. They are executing a strategic and silent withdrawal. This is not a passive surrender, but an active, conscious decision to reallocate energy. The immense mental and emotional resources once dedicated to decoding signals, mustering courage, and facing potential public humiliation are now being channeled inward. This is a mass redirecting of effort from the external, unpredictable pursuit of female validation to the internal, controllable construction of a meaningful life. The gym, the career, financial independence, and deep bonds of brotherhood have become the new frontiers for masculine effort. These arenas offer a fundamental fairness that the modern dating market does not. Effort invested here yields predictable, tangible returns. Lifting weights builds muscle. Honing a skill advances. A career, saving and investing builds security. These pursuits offer peace and a self-derived sense of worth that is not contingent on the fickle judgment of a stranger. This collective shift constitutes a quiet rebellion. It is a refusal to participate in a dynamic that demands men perform as supplicants, begging for attention from those who may mock them for trying. The man who builds a life of discipline, purpose, and substance on his own terms is making a powerful statement. He is rejecting the role of the clown in a circus that laughs at, not with him. He is opting out of a system that demands he prove his value through pursuit, only to often be deemed valueless for the act itself. The most profound irony is that this very withdrawal, born from a refusal to chase, often creates a magnetic allure. In a world saturated with men vying for attention through likes, comments, and desperate bids for validation, the man who is content in his own solitude, focused on his mission, and uninterested in performing, becomes an anomaly. His lack of neediness is misinterpreted as confidence, his silence as depth, and his self-possession as strength. This creates an unexpected power shift. The women who once held all the cards in the initial approach now find themselves curious, intrigued, and wanting the attention of the one man not giving it away freely. The man who protects his dignity, thus, accidentally becomes the most desirable player in a game he has already left. The most profound and unsettling irony of this entire cultural shift is that the very group that fostered this environment of hostility and risk is now beginning to feel its consequences most acutely. Women who once operated from a position of limitless choice and social power are now voicing a confused lament, asking the increasingly common question, where have all the good men gone? This question, however, is often a misdiagnosis of the problem. The good men haven't vanished, have simply ceased performing the rituals of pursuit that made them visible. They have withdrawn their attention, the very currency they were. Once so willing to spend, and that was so often devalued, the consequence is a dating market paralyzed by a standoff. Women are waiting for men to initiate as they always have, while men, fearing the new repercussions, are refusing to act. This confusion stems from a failure to connect cause and effect. Every time a man's earnest approach was met with an eye roll and a derisive story to her friends, it wasn't just one man being rejected. It was a lesson being broadcast to every other man in the social circle. Every time a screenshot of an awkward message was posted online for collective mockery, it wasn't just one cringe guy being shamed. It was a warning sent to millions of others about the potential cost of taking a shot. The tools of digital humiliation were used to filter out men deemed undesirable. But the collateral damage was the confidence and willingness of the entire group, the very men who possessed the self-awareness, empathy, and respect for women to be frightened of being labeled. A creep, the so-called good men, are the ones most likely to internalize these lessons and opt out entirely. The result is that the dating pool available for approaches hasn't been refined. It has been gutted of its most conscientious participants, leaving behind only the most arrogant, the most oblivious, or the most desperate men who are undeterred by social risk. Women, in their effort to ward off unwanted attention, have inadvertently created an environment that discourages the wanted attention too. They are left facing a paradox of their own making. The safety and selectivity they demanded have bred a silence they find deeply unsatisfying. This cultural shift is not a temporary boycott. It is a permanent restructuring of the social contract between men and women. Men have collectively crossed a Rubicon of awareness, realizing that a life of purpose and peace, built on their own terms, is not a consolation prize, but a superior alternative to the exhausting, higher-risk, lower-reward pursuit of validation in the modern dating market. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle. The old paradigm, where men were expected to be the sole initiators and bear the entire burden of social risk, is obsolete. It has been broken by a fundamental loss of trust and a rational calculation of modern consequences. The new equilibrium is one of self-possession, where a man's value is determined by his own standards of success and discipline, not by his ability to successfully navigate a metaphorical minefield of potential social offenses. This establishes a new, more balanced dynamic for the future. The question is no longer why won't men approach, but rather what environment would make approaching feel safe and respectful again. The responsibility for reconciliation now lies with the party that holds the power to make the public square safe for social risk: women. It requires a collective shift away from a culture of mockery and contempt and towards one of grace and mutual respect. It means understanding that a clumsy compliment or an awkward advance from a well-intentioned man is not a capital offense worthy of public flogging, but a human moment that deserves a simple, polite refusal that necessitates valuing courage again, rather than punishing it. For their part, men are not waiting for this change. They are building their kingdom's fortresses of career, fitness, finance, and friendship that provide fulfillment without requiring permission. This self-sufficiency makes them untouchable to the old systems of manipulation. If a woman wants to be part of that kingdom, the onus is now on her to prove she adds to its peace and does not threaten its stability. She may have to signal interest more clearly, initiate conversation, and share the burden of risk. This is not a reversal of roles, but a move toward equity. The silent withdrawal of men is not an act of aggression, but a profound lesson in consequences. It demonstrates that attention must be earned and respect must be mutual, and that the most powerful form of leverage is the willingness to simply walk away and build a better life alone. The message is clear. Men will no longer bleed for scraps of attention. They have found a far more valuable currency: their own peace.